Now let's start with our last exercise where we are going to see how to really use sketching as a thinking tool. Now your task is to modify a three-dimensional form such as cube, pyramid, cylinder into a paper weight, right? Something that you put it on the bunch of papers so that they don't fly away, right? So let's start by first understanding how can we quickly sketch 3D geometry. We have already seen how to construct a cube using one point perspective. I'm just extending the thought and then I'm constructing a prism, as you can see. You also remember, I hope, how we constructed the 3D letters. Extending that same thought, you can see how a prism can be quickly constructed. Right? So that becomes our prism. And we can also see a quick sketch of a cylinder out here, right? So you first sketch a circle and then draw the tangent to this circle starting from this point so that you'll get the maximum visible range of the surface of this cylinder, and then you sort of just draw a curvilinear form that's parallel to this form, right? And then that is where our cylinder is formed. Just pay attention to these areas because then this has to be a smooth transition. Don't draw like this, right? This is a classic mistake that we all tend to do. So just try and make it proper, right? So this is our cylinder, this is our prism, and similarly you can construct any shape out of this particular. So let's try and make a cone. Maybe I'll do it the other way around. I'll start with a circle at the back surface. Here is my back surface, and if that's the circle on the back surface, and this will be the center, and I vanish the center as well. So this is the point where I can vanish my cone to, and last visible line, and that becomes my three-dimensional cone, right? That should give you a fair amount of idea as to how to construct 3D shapes, right? Okay, so that's a cone, that's a cylinder, and that's a prism. Now, in order to construct an object out of this, you can make modifications such as cutting something out of these forms or adding something to it or giving it radius like this, right? Or combining it with some other form as well. That's the next stage. You may or may not try that. That's up to you. But you can really work with the radius and you can see how these shapes will change, right? Now I'm going to quickly demonstrate an example of a salt and pepper shaker set instead of a paperweight. So I will demonstrate the salt and pepper shaker, whereas you have to construct a paperweight out of these geometries. So let's start with these cubes that I have already drawn in here. I have made some structures so that my sketching is quicker. And I'm going to sort of split this cube into two parts so that they become salt and pepper sort of. So one side will be salt and another side will be pepper, right? So if I now I have split it, this is the cube and I have split it this way, right? And then I will sort of project it like we had for the alphabet, right? So we as you can see, I can now complete this form and the right hand side becomes the pepper. So now I can also visualize one part as black and another part as white. The white part is probably salt and the black part is the pepper shaker, right? So I can add the holes which are just indicative. As you can see, I am thinking and drawing. It is perfectly fine if there are some mistakes, some lines that are drawn over. We had seen this sort of a thing in the architect sketch as well for the building. So drawing over is perfectly fine. A little bit of crookedness is also perfectly fine. So in a similar way, you can start drawing and you can fit probably a couple of sketches or maybe 3 sketches on a paper, on an A4 paper, not more than that. And then explore while doing that how many different kinds of forms you can generate for a paperweight by starting with basic cube, cuboid, prism, cylinder, and then how many forms can you come up with, right? So you're expected to first generate multiple ideas and then finalize one. So in this case, I am just adding some grooves on a cube and then assuming one part to be salt and another part to be pepper. There could be various permutations, combinations in this. Either I can think of this as 8 separate pieces or maybe like alternating or half and half or diagonally half, and that becomes the beauty of thinking while sketching, right? Now I can maybe just say that this part becomes the salt, this part becomes this, and the lower cube that's below this, they two form, so this and this form, this forms the pepper, right? So as you can see, I'm also trying to create the grid for the holes. Don't stray away and get lost. Try and use the lines to guide you as much as possible, right? So that I split it properly, 1/3, 1/3, and then I add the holes. So now this part becomes my salt shaker, the other part becomes the pepper shaker, and these could be just decorative elements on the whole stand. Maybe I can add a stand out here, right? So keep adding and keep visualizing as to what your paperweight. It can double up as something else also. Nobody is stopping you from imagining that. So as we saw, these two forms were generated. Let me add holes out here as well. So these two forms were generated out of a cube, and similarly we have some more explorations of cube. As you can see, I've repeated this idea, but rest of them are fresh. So these are where I'm starting from a cube. In this case, I have started with a cuboid and a pyramid. In this case, it's a pyramid. In this case, it's a cuboid, but then I have cut them from the top. I have also added a bit of a radius. In this case, I have split it along the other side. So here it is splitting from the front side, whereas this is splitting from the top. And I have also sort of staggered them actually, right? So these are all sorts of forms that you can generate from forms that have straight edges. So up till now we have been seeing cubes, cuboids, pyramids. In this case, I have also sketched some cylinders, and this is sort of spherical form that is cut from below, but it's not very uniformly spherical. It's more like a bulbous form, so it's becoming slightly off-centered sphere sort of a form. Here it's a yin and yang form from top, but otherwise it's a cylinder. There are two cylinders combined, and then they are chamfered or cut in a slant way from top, and I have then added the holes for the pepper dispensing or salt dispensing. In this case, it's a part of a sort of a as you can see, a donut, and then this has become a salt and pepper shaker. In this case, there will be a split in the middle, and this becomes a pepper shaker, and this becomes a salt shaker. If you want, you can add a little bit of notes, like maybe like this is pepper, this is salt, right? So on and so forth. Or in the earlier case, I would say that this was the stand and this was the redundant part of the form, etc. Right? And then lastly, once you are done, once you like a form, so let's say you sketch around 7 to 8 forms, different forms for a paperweight generated from different shapes, then finalize one. In this case, let's say if I finalize this, then I go on to making a better sketch on a A4 sheet. So it could start looking like this. So as you can see, I have added little more details in terms of the radii, in terms of how the depth has sort of, how will the surface go in. And then I have also added some marker. So let me sort of, right, this is just to give it a little lift. This is not compulsory for your sketches, but I just wanted it to be seen properly on your screen. So I have just added some shade, and you can try something like this too for your final sketch, right? And that's your final deliverable. So you will show us your final sketch and explore, and with your final sketch we should be able to make out whether you have explored enough or not.